Welcome to a Leader's Journey podcast. I'm your host, Joel Gunn, and my wife, Christina Gunn's back with me today.
Hi.
I had fun with the last episode. I thought we'd do something a little risky in this one, is tell a little bit of our story. A lot of leaders are married, and if they're not, they will be. And typically, leadership podcasts, you don't end up talking a lot about marriage. Mm-mm. And if you do, it's usually with a guest in the chair, and so it's not quite as personal. So I thought we'd start with a chapter that wasn't particularly fun for us, but we'll end on a positive note.
Okay, good.
So,
since we're here together, I guess it ended positive.
Yeah. So far, so good.
Yeah.
Well, for those that don't know, we celebrate 38 years this summer, and so looking forward to that. And we actually met when we were 17 and got married at 19. A lot of people thought we were both silly or stupid or a combination thereof. But we were in love, and we wanted to, it was us against the world.
That's right.
And we're going to go do it. Wasn't always a bed of roses. And even though we were best friends before we got married, we often acted like brother and sister. And
a lot of people used to say that. Are you a brother and sister or married? We're like, oh, I've never had a brother, so I don't know.
Yeah. So we'll talk about birth order and those kind of things here in a minute. But let's jump into year 26 of our marriage.
3 kids already.
Three kids, life's happening. A lot of our story before and since then. But in year 26 in particular, you were tired of being second place, is the nice way to put it. There was no infidelity on either one of our parts. Mm-mm. But I had been climbing the corporate ladder for a number of years and pursuing business and kind of honestly putting myself first and you second. And you had enough of it. And we ended up in a meeting with, I was actually working for the church at the time as an executive pastor. And we end up meeting with our senior pastor and his wife, who's also my boss. Mm-hmm. And actually, they're both my boss. So anyway, you share your side of the story, and they agreed with you that things were out of balance and out of whack and a mess. And so over that next couple of weeks, we go to a marriage retreat for the first time in our lives. And the last day of that marriage retreat, really doing a lot of self-reflecting, and God's talking to my heart. And I, for the first time in my life, felt like dirt or lower than dirt. And because it dawned on me, I had spent hundreds, if not thousands of hours on degrees, leadership training, team building, people skills, being a better manager, being a better boss, being a better leader, on and on and on. But I'd never spent any time learning to be a better husband. I can't say never. I had read a few books, occasionally heard the sermon, but never intentionally gone and sought out being a better husband, going to a marriage retreat. And so I repented to God that day and to you and said that, for the rest of our lives, I'll commit to go into some sort of marriage strengthening something, retreat or otherwise, at least every other year, because this is a priority for me and is important to me. You and God both graciously accepted my apology and my heartfelt repentance. It's not been perfect since then, but we started seeking out way better, and we started seeking out marriage retreats and opportunities to improve our relationship. And a few years into that process, we were exposed to the Abide Ministries and their weekend retreat. And in that, we started to learn some of what we actually share today as we lead retreats. Mm-hmm. And so let's unpack that a little bit, pick up the story there, or set up the backstory.
Yeah. Well, let me just back up a notch or two. Oh, like you indicated, we were best friends when we got married. We were going to conquer the world. And what we didn't have, we saw a lot of people ahead of us, grandparents and mothers and fathers that had marriages. So we're just going to do like the norm. We're going to get married and we're just going to do that. But we didn't have, like you indicated just now, we didn't have good mentors in what marriage looked like. And over a period of time, it became like a slow fade. Like there's this, year 26 didn't just happen year 26. It was over a period of time. Mm-hmm. And things just evolved or exploded or manifested or whatever it looked like. And it wasn't just you. It was both of us not knowing what to do, not knowing how to do it. And because of our personalities, we ended up, someone's going to win and somebody's going to hurt. Something's going to happen. Someone's going to break. There's this competitive situation that arose. So it wasn't just like that day was the day. It was over a period of time. And if married couples that listen to this today, it's not something that just showed up that day. This has been a period of time that's evolved. So, but yes, now.
You usually tell people, I was the oldest child and you were the only child, so we're both used to getting our way.
Well, as the only child and a girl, my dad was very defensive to me being a girl. Like he was, he'll beat up anybody that looked at me wrong or even acted like they was going to come after me. And so I was used to that protection, that situation. So when he was gone and taken away, I became that person. And I had continued that journey of defending myself, and didn't matter if it was for a good reason or not. It just was, I was going to make a stance. And then we get into the church world, and all you hear is wives submit to your husband, and husbands, are over the wives. And there's a lot of submission to things that there's no explanation on how that actually works. It just sounds like women just do what he says, and men just rule over her, and there's no real unity or conversation about what that looks like.
And for those that have grown up outside the church or in the wrong kind of churches, that most of the time it's misquoted. It's certainly not explained correctly.
No. And I mean, I remember just not too long ago, someone says, well, you're a Proverbs 31 wife. I don't want to be I want to be a strong, assertive Deborah in the Bible, judge and take over the world and be a warrior. Don't put me in the household, submissive type thing. So that was just a prideful thing, and on me learning on what that looked like. Mm-hmm. So
we're in year 26, fast forward to 2017 time frame. We've been to several marriage retreats. Things have gotten a lot better in those years.
We were still alive.
Still alive, still working together, still best friends. But we go to this particular retreat in Galveston, and some good friends of ours are leading the retreat, and they start the weekend off like write down all the things that are bringing disagreement. Write down all the things you're concerned about. Write down all the things you're praying about. Big life decisions, et cetera, right? And
rate your marriage and rate this. And
yeah,
you're like,
all this.
I'm like,
so we
zero. You don't get hundreds with me today.
And so one of the things we wrote down was we were in that season trying to decide what our next house would look like.
Yes, because two of our kids had gone off to college, and we were becoming slowly empty nesters, and it was a pretty big house that we were currently renting, and so we were just like, what do we do next?
Yeah, and so good size house, and so we. Being the frugal guy that I am, I'm like, well, it makes sense if we have less people at home, then we need less house. And being the compassionate, caring person, gatherer that you are, you're like, well, but our kids are going to have kids, and
they're going to come home with their spouses,
come home with their friends from college, and then they're going to get married and come home with their spouses, and then come home with the grandkids. So we need a bigger house, and so. I was being logical and you were being emotional, so I was right and you were wrong. And,
right, sure.
Well, I'm telling the story.
Yes, I heard.
So anyway, it's a real life drama thing for us, to a point where we would try to talk about it, but it would quickly spin out, right? And neither one of us were happy about that, so we just avoid it. But there was times that we had to discuss it because various life events are happening, and so it's not something we could completely avoid. And one of the things they started teaching us that weekend that was life-changing for us was that you can be in complete disagreement yet still be in unity.
And it was
which
like,
freaks people out. Like, that's no definition I've ever heard.
No.
And so they actually turn to the book of Acts in the Bible and share a real life example of where there's very much disagreement on a topic, and the two parties agree to travel together back to Jerusalem to get counsel and a final decision. And it says, so I did the rough math, and this was not a quick journey. They were not like one
Didn't
town
have cars, no planes.
It was like probably a 2-week process to get, if they went a fairly direct route and didn't stop a lot and stay.
Right.
The custom of the time was you would stay for 1 to several days, not just check in for the night and leave the next morning. And so we know for a minimum of 2 weeks they traveled together. And it says, as they went from town to town, everywhere they went, as they were sharing the story of what God was doing in their midst, they were spreading great joy. And all of a sudden it dawned on me, when you and I disagree, we were not spreading great joy.
We were. Our children felt it. Our family felt it. The neighbors probably heard it. It was not a good thing.
Right. So all of a sudden I realized, hey, here's an actual biblical story that says it's possible these two parties are in complete disagreement, yet they've agreed to pause that. And as they're sharing their story, they're spreading great joy. And so I was like, well, okay, if that's true, then I'm doing something wrong. Right.
I think we both came to that. We internally both like, well, I'm doing something wrong. You're doing something.
Yeah. So then we started to try to understand what we now know as reaching a point of neutral. You want to start sharing a little bit about that, and then I'll jump in.
Well, with our personalities, we have a tendency to just go. Like in my last episode, it was let's just go. Shoot from the hip, go, jump in, do whatever it takes. And so we're pretty much, both of us are take charge. Let's go. Yeah, we shouldn't be. And so going to neutral was a new concept for us. We know we can do it in a car. We can do it in certain situations, but when you realize
this is life, and life's about winning.
Yes. And so when you realize when you put your car in neutral, you're not going anywhere. And when you put your life in neutral or decision in neutral, you're like, oh, well, I'm supposed to be still. And the Bible says, be still. And I'm like, oh, be still. It's another word for neutral. Just be still. And so that was a new concept for us. And so it was hard to swallow too, because you want to say a lot of things, you want to do a lot of things, and being still or going in neutral doesn't feel like we're making progress.
One of the things that I started to realize in this discovery of this idea of going to neutral was, and people may be wondering, what is this concept? Well, one of the base concepts here is I give up my right to be right.
Right.
At the same time, you give up your right to be right.
Right.
But whether you give up your right to be right or not, I still give up my right to be right, and vice versa. And so, obviously, as humans, we want our own way, right? We're selfish beings. And so, I am not responsible for making you give up your right to be right. I'm responsible for me giving up my right to be right. And hopefully you'll reciprocate, but I can't control that. And so the idea here is we both give up our right to be right. And since we're Christians and we believe that God is active in our daily lives, then in this scenario for us, we are going to go to God in prayer and say, God, I think we need a smaller house. Christina thinks we need a bigger house.
What do you say?
What do you think?
Yeah, what do you say?
Right?
And it's an interesting novel concept.
For both of us sitting there that weekend, it's like, well, duh. Like, we go pray to him about other stuff, but
well, no, actually, we go to pray for him with other stuff with an already agenda. Mm-hmm. We go say, hey, we want X, Y, Z, and we want it this way. Mm-hmm. And getting to neutral means you put all that aside. And he might have a different direction altogether. And you're like, but that doesn't line up with my agenda. Mm-hmm. And so making sure that so a lot of times people come to God with, fix this mess I'm in, which is fine. Mm-hmm. But if we wouldn't be in that mess if we had just gone to neutral and waited to see what they had to say.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a key element of this, going to neutral, is I'm not going to God prescribing the outcome.
Right.
I'm not even hinting at what the outcome is. If I'm truly in neutral, I'm open to
new ideas or information.
New ideas. Mm-hmm. I'm open to that we get a bigger house. I'm open to we get a smaller house. I'm open to we stay in the same house. I'm open to sell our house, right? Like, if I'm truly in neutral, then I'm open to whatever outcome he arranges mm-hmm. or he guides us to. Mm-hmm. And so that's a big thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, but the key on that is being open to new information. Mm-hmm. I think you may have, but we're going to go there. So you're driving down the road and you see a sign that says something. You're like, oh, well, okay. Or you hear a song, or you hear someone talking that wasn't in your conversation that alludes to something that you're processing with the Lord. And you're like, so what our mentor currently is teaching us, Rich is teaching us, is like, pay attention to outside information. Gather the information, and then you're gathering this information while you're in neutral, so you can kind of just see where you're navigating to.
And so if I'm in neutral and I see information about larger homes are going to become more affordable, well, if I'm not neutral, I'm going to go, I don't care about larger homes. I'm looking for the article that says smaller homes are the way to go. To
prove my case.
Right. And so if I'm truly in neutral, then I'm open to
new information.
Right, new information. And it wasn't all of a sudden, yes, we're perfect, we're in neutral, right? No. But what happened was we started to agree that we're not going to try to control the outcome. We're going to let him lead us to his best will for us, right? And again, as you know, somebody's listening and they're not a follower of Christ, that's fine. They can still take some of these principles. But for those that are, God says he will lead us to his best for us individually. Mm-hmm. So he's very, very, very concerned about you as his daughter, you, mm-hmm. Christina, mm-hmm. your best life for you. Now, that doesn't mean it's a pleasant or comfortable every moment of the day, because there are sometimes we're allowed to go through something uncomfortable for various reasons. It may be that we just needed more information. It may be we were stubborn, or we were rebellious, or whatever. He's also got my best interest at heart. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is he knows how he made you and what brings you joy and keeps you unique. He knows he's got my best interest at heart, how he made me, what brings me joy, and how to keep me unique. But he also sees us as one, according mm-hmm. to Scripture, couple. So as a couple, we're unique,
right?
And he's got our best interest as a couple mm-hmm. at heart. Mm-hmm. So he knows how to honor you, the unique individual that you are. He knows how to recognize me and the gifts he gave me, but he also knows how to bring those together, and all three people, you, me, and us, mm-hmm. Get his best. Mm-hmm. So once we start to accept that that's a possibility, then we can both win.
So what I also realized with neutral, and what I heard said in the retreat, is in the past experience of not me going to neutral is, oh, fine, have it your way. I'll just, whatever. I'll go to neutral, and that's not the neutral we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Because it's not being passive aggressive or like, just throw your hands up and you're done. You're just throwing the towel and let the other person have their
Concede,
way.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that was a tendency of mine because of our personality differences. It's like, okay, fine. whatever you say is, Bible says honor your, follow him. And so I'm following you. And so it's neutral in the sense that you're both at a good place, and you realize I don't need to challenge him right now about that. He doesn't need to challenge me because he knows we're neutral. And we can talk about some things, but when we realize it's going to a different level of conversation, we remind each other, hey, we're at neutral. We're still not decided yet. Mm-hmm. And it diffused conversations that would otherwise trigger us and cause us to explode.
Yeah. And we share the rest of this story at retreats and other podcasts. But one of the things that we agreed was on this house, we are just going to stay at neutral until he makes it obvious what the best solution is.
Right.
And we ultimately ended up, and that's a whole nother story, a whole nother podcast. It's a story that's actually been told on one of Rich's podcasts, but we ended up in a scenario where we said the house is now less important to us than this relationship that we've developed, this ability to totally disagree and yet spread great joy.
Right.
And there was days, that it'd creep in and, old habits would start back up.
It wasn't perfect.
But for the most part, it was 2.5 years-ish that we walked in total disagreement, and yet it was some of the most calm, truly peaceful, joyful 2.5 years of our marriage. He did bring a solution, and they'll have to go find another podcast or come to our retreat to hear what that was. Right. But, and so it's something that neither one of us want to give up anymore. I physically feel sick now when I argue with you in the ways I used to in the old days. And so for me, it's been a major change in how I interact with you and how I love you.
Same.
And so just want to encourage anybody listening to the podcast, life happens and it's easy to fall into those bad habits.
It's intentional. You have to be intentional about this. With everything that we do, it has to be intentional. So we invite people, if you want to understand more about what this looks like, we invite you to contact us and just let's chat about that kind of.
Yeah, we'd love to continue the conversation. So with that, let's bring the episode to a close. Okay. Let's leave them on a cliffhanger.
All right.
Wanting to know more. But it is possible to have a great relationship even when you disagree.
And this is in working relationships too. It's not just spouse. Spouse is more intimate, so we wanted to share an intimate story, but this can actually apply to your children and to your work relationships if you actually will learn and be invited to this.
Yeah, and we've seen it start to spill out into the marketplace. Our mentor Rich and his wife Linda have seen this in nonprofits. They've seen it in churches. They've seen it in businesses.
Small groups.
We've started to see the same kinds of fruit in those settings as well. So it's really cool to see that this concept, again, whether somebody's a Christ follower or not, there's still some things
principles
that you can apply in your personal life and in your business life.
That's right.
But anyway, thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me. This was a fun episode to talk about how we can continue to live life together in neutral and listening to
Thanks for coming to the studio. We're going to go on vacation in a few hours.
That's right. Let's go.
All right. Love you.
Love you too.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of A Leader's Journey podcast. If you enjoyed it, give us a thumbs up and remember to subscribe to our channel.